Lesson 8.2b, factoring trinomials when a is greater than 1. Here are some extra examples. Example number 1, we have 6x squared plus 7x minus 49. Now what you notice here is we have multiple factors of a and multiple factors of c. So let's begin by listing out all the possible factors of 6. 6 times 1, 2 times 3, and then the same for 49. 49. But notice that this is negative, so we can list out negatives as well. So negative 49 times 1, right? And 7 times 7. You can also make that. Now the part about these problems here is depending on the position of these factors, you can have different combinations that add up to the middle term. So we have to take that into account and list out all the possible scenarios here. So with negative 49 and 1, we could also have positive 49 and negative 1. And if we flip directions for these, we can also have 1 times negative 49 and negative 1 times 49. So you could see the 49 and 1 deal with 4 different scenarios. Now the 7, because both of these are the same number, we can only flip them once. So 7 can go in front times negative 7. So this is quite a bit of scenarios to check for. But when it comes to problems like this, you have to be strategic and start crossing out some of these. Like, let's say we guess our first factor to be 6x and 1x. All right, and let's say we start off with 49, and let's do minus 49 and plus 1. Well, if I take 6 and 1, if I multiply those together, you get 6x. And if I take these two and multiply them together, we get minus 49x. And you can see that this is a lot larger than 7. So knowing that, and if I was to flip the position of these, make this positive, this one negative, I would get the same result, but the negative, the opposite of it. So knowing that, I can discard this and this one because they're in the same position. Now let's check this scenario here where we have plus 1 and minus 49. If I multiply 6x and 49, I get some big number, right? 294 negative x. And if I add 1 here, 1x, right? This is a lot larger than the 7x. If I flip the direction or the opposite sign for these, the only thing that happens is this becomes positive, that one becomes negative, but it's still way too larger, way larger than 7. So knowing that, I can also cancel these two. Okay, so now what's left here? I have 7 and negative 7, so let's try it out. That combination, plus 7. All right, 6 and 7 make 42 minus 7. Pretty close. All right, a lot closer than before, but not quite. This is 35x. If I flip the sign on these, make that one positive and a negative, then what happens is this one becomes negative 7x. So negative 35x. So it seems like none of these are going to work for this scenario. So that means none of them worked, okay? But that's not to say that there's still not an answer between any of these. This means that we need to switch these factors, okay? The 6 times 1 is not going to work. All right, now let's check 2x and 3x here. And then we have to go back and test all of these out. All right. So, right, knowing strategically that all these 49s probably will get you really big numbers, instead of starting with them, I'm going to start off with the lower numbers because that could potentially give me that 7x. Okay, so let's try this one. Right, minus 7 plus 7. If I multiply the middle terms, we have a 2x times 7, that's 14x. And then negative 7 times 3, that is 21x negative. So this is negative 7. So this is the correct combination of numbers. It's just playing around with the positives and negatives. All right, so now if we flip the sign and make this one the positive number and that one the negative number, we can reevaluate this. So negative 14x for this one, and then 7 times 3x becomes 21x, which is 7x. All right, so that middle term here matches up with this middle term here, which makes this my factor form. So we'll begin again by listing out the factors of 4. 4 times 1 and 2 times 2. And as far for the c, we are looking at negative 25. So scenarios here. It looks like my middle term is 15, which isn't too large. So instead of listing out 25 and 1 first, I'm going to list out negative 5 and positive 5, and then positive 5 times negative 5. I'm being strategic and not make my middle terms add up to a really big number. And then if you want, we can list out all the possible scenarios for the other one. So 1 times 25, negative, and negative 1 times positive 25. As well as flipping these around. If we have factors that are different, we can place them in different places. So 25 times negative 1 and negative 25 times positive 1. So let's try to see if we can check some of these scenarios and hopefully we find the answer not too far into all these factors. All right, so the first method here is first scenario is 4n times n and minus 5 plus 5. And if we multiply to add up to the middle term, we have 4n times 5 is 20n, and negative 5 times n is negative 5n. So these add up to negative 15 or the positive 15n, which is really close to what we need. We need a negative. So that tells me that all I have to do is flip the signs. If I make this one positive and that one negative, and that means that this is the correct scenario. I check 4 times n, or 4n times 5 is negative 20n, and then 5 times n is positive 5n, which add up to negative 15n. So this is what I want, matches up with this, and this is my factor form. This time around, we didn't do too much work. All right, last problem of this video. Go ahead and pause this video if you want to try it on your own. I have factors of 6, so 6 times 1 and 2 times 3. And factors of 45. In this case, 45 is positive, so we don't have to take into account the negatives. And that's going to save in some positioning for factors. So we have 45 times 1 and 1 times 45. Other factors of 45 include 3 times 15 and 15 times 3. I'm switching the places of these. And 9 times 4, or 9 times 5, and 5 times 9. I think these are all the possibilities for 45, as well as their correct places. So I just thinking ahead, I'm gonna need a sum of two numbers, one that multiplies with 6 and 1, that will get me to 37, okay? And just knowing that from the beginning, I know that anything multiplied, probably not gonna be this or these, because if I multiply 6 times 45, that's a really big number. If I multiply 2 times 45, that's a big number, and none of those approach 37. So I'm just going to begin guessing here at 3 times 15 or 15 times 3 with the factors of 6 and 1. So 6r times 1r and plus 3 plus 15. I'm multiplying 6 and 15 together. That's a pretty big number, a lot more than 37. So what I'm going to do is just flip these around like that. 15 here, and then 3 here. 6 times 3 is 18, and 15 times 1 is 15. So 18r plus 15r is 33r, which is not, it's not going to be our factors that we choose here. They don't add up to 37. All right, so now I'm going to switch and go on to the next one. I'm not going to position the 9 here because 6 and 9 make a really big number. And 6 times 5 here are going to make 30r plus 9 times 2, or 9 times 1r is 9r. So these add up to 39, which is really close, but it's not going to work out. So that means that none of these work for 6 and 1. So I'll switch to 2 and 3 and start guessing there. Again, we're not going to do these two because those create really big numbers. Let's try 3 and 15 here. 2 and 15 make 30r, and 3 times 3 is 9r. These ones don't add up to 37. Let's try switching them around. Alright, if we switch them around, we get, here in the middle, we get 45r, so that's not going to work. So the last few to check are 9 and 5. 2 times 5 is equal to 10r, plus 9 times 3 is 27r, and then here we finally have our combination. These add up to 37r, so that means that this is the correct factor form. Kind of long, but not as long as the first problem.